YouTube, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host TKK and we are back with another video, guys. All right, today is going to be a vlog, but we're going to talk about a couple of different things. Primarily, we're going to go into some deep dive about my two arcade cabinets, both the Vewlix right here, and we're going to talk about the Chewlix that's right here. I'm going to answer a ton of different frequently asked questions that have come onto the channel as of late. I've been utilizing this cabinet to create some content for you guys, and we have been playing on the 77-inch LG G2 OLED also. So right after I get done rolling the intro, we're going to get right into this. All right, guys, so welcome back to the channel. All right, so we're going to start this video off with me giving you some expectations within it. Timestamps are in the description or the title bar of the video. All right, so we're going to use two forms of capturing to present this to you. Everything is primarily going to be shot with this point and shoot camera, 4K, 30, 60. I'm not sure how to render out, but we will be using my iPhone also. I will let you know, you probably will be able to look at the clarity of the content to be able to tell if the iPhone's being used. But any transition, if I decide to use an iPhone, I'll be sure to let you know, okay? I want to focus on three setups that I use in this room. This room is set up with three, so that's why I wanted to start by, giving you an overview in the intro of the three setups. So I've currently got gaming PC in the Chewlix, I've got Xbox Series X in the Vewlix, and the 77-inch G2 has the PlayStation 5. It also has a gaming PC, but to be able to capture stream content, these are the three setups. Now with these two arcade setups, if you've been following the channel, the most recent videos that I've posted on this channel and the gaming channel, which is Street Fighter with TKK, make sure you guys subscribe to that. I've gave you pretty much like an over the shoulder perspective type of shot. I'm just trying to recreate something or create something that's, organic and fresh and just new, right? I'm playing, I'm learning, I'm discussing, and your optics are pretty much just looking over my shoulder. The only opportunity that I have within that type of content is that the camera that I'm using isn't able to really capture high dynamic range. And while Street Fighter 6 itself isn't in HDR, this beautiful Phillips Momentum monitor does have the ability to kind of push through a color space of HDR. So it does a really good job. It looks flawless to me in film, but I can see sometimes when I've played back some content, it looks overblown, and it's just the camera, which is why we'll use the iPhone at some point to kind of talk about Vewlix, the setup here versus Chewlix. So this video is going to have some depth. So now that you have expectations, let's get right into it. All right, so this is the Vewlix. To be more specific, this is called the Orange Diamond. This is the cabinet that you would have if you had a Street Fighter 5 arcade setup. This is a true one-to-one Street Fighter 5 arcade machine. When I got this, I actually did get the hardware for Street Fighter 5. So the entire platform, which is Taito X4, as well as the software on hard drive for Street Fighter 5. Now the word is that they will reuse these shells for the Orange Diamond for the official release of Street Fighter 6. In any event, I was pretty meticulous in creating this and wanting this. Now my cabinet features a topper and artwork that is from an eBay seller. I will definitely put his name in the description. When you follow through from the aesthetics, what I've done is I've put Luke and Kimberly from the collector's edition. You can see that right here, that's Luke, and right there, that's Kimberly. I've put them figures there just to kind of, add a little bit of pizzazz to my setup. I just wanted to, create my room to be how I wanted it to be. Now, I featured this content going in depth, but if you are new to the channel, maybe you've come around because of the recent gaming uploads and things of that sort. I've been asked a question about this cabinet, where you can get this from. Listen, this is not an order from Walmart, order from Amazon, order from Best Buy type of situation. You will have to import this. Expect some costs, especially if you're getting an Orange Diamond. and depending on what the conditions are with this system. All right, so let's talk about customizations, okay? And I don't want to deep dive too much into this, but you know, if you got more questions, be sure to use the comment section. So obviously starting with the artwork, that is customized, okay? But when it comes down to performance, there's a couple of different things that you might want to do if you should decide to get into this. And number one might be the buttons. In my opinion, I'm good with just like the default sound with stick, sound with buttons. That just works for me. You know, so mine worked. I didn't have to touch these, but I did add this control panel here, which this panel does increase volume, puts us in a position where I can hear volume louder or not. I do have a couple of USB-A connections there. Those would only be useful if I was like, you know, entertaining external company. I had somebody that was playing on the cabinet with me, or if I had two people playing and they both wanted to use arcade sticks, and not one person would be able to be up on the cabinet, obviously, because playing on the cabinet puts you right smack dead in the middle. If you've seen my last couple of videos about it, you know that. And then you got some extra buttons where you can kind of map out things, okay? So that's number one. Number two, the monitor. Now, this is a Vewlix. So there's different types of client base that will buy into one of these, and you know, some of them feel like, hey, you know, it's fine as is. I'm a quality whore. You know, if you know about my YouTube, I specialize in talking about TVs. I buy a lot of monitors, a lot of TVs. I use them in like real time, and so, you know, upgrading the monitor was essential for me. Now after this, we'll talk about the Chewlix and I'll kind of revert back to this, but initially my thought process to the Vewlix was that I wouldn't touch anything. I would leave everything original. And if I got one that had the Street Fighter V artwork, I would just leave it as is. And I plan on doing that, but you know, Street Fighter 6 is new and it's fresh. So I put an Xbox Series X inside of mine. You know, gives me something modern. And then I put the Phillips Momentum monitor into it, which is an Xbox ready monitor, which means that it has some extra settings in it that will detect the Xbox connection. And, you know, this monitor has the ability to give you an HDR boost. So for games that are not high dynamic range, as I was just explaining earlier, you'll get it. Now, looking at my viewfinder, and I've recorded content like this before, I can tell things like in this area, this area, this area are very overblown. My camera's just not able to capture exactly what's happening on screen. But what I'm seeing is magnificent. There's just great reflections and such, almost like ray tracing. Ray tracing is activated on it, but it's HDR from the monitor. The monitor is recreating the color space, and it's adding and giving a boost to where it feels that things should be. Now, I like this so much because it looks very much so close to my LG G2. So again, the game itself doesn't have high dynamic range, but the monitor doesn't see that, right? The monitor has the ability to hit a switch and to say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna kick some extra color fidelity and or some quality and fidelity and the color space. I'm gonna turn it up so that we can get more pop. You can certainly turn it down, but I'm telling you, in person, this looks phenomenal. Now, this is a Chewlix, and we'll power this on in just a few. Up to down, this is the Chinese knockoff, right? That is what it's been coined. And we'll talk about, you know, some comparisons in these two briefly, but this was the first guy that I got. If you are interested in getting something like this, my opinion, if you can afford to, this is where you start. The reasoning that you start here is because it's not going to be as expensive. And I mean, there is a drastic change in price depending on what Vewlix you're looking at. This is the Chewlix though. So with this, you can get this at, in my opinion, an affordable price point. Now, you buy this, yeah, you might not mind, you know, cutting in, getting new speakers, doing all of that. I've created some in-depth content. How good the content is, I'll let you guys be the judge, but I went through the whole shebang of me, you know, cutting on this thing and like changing speakers, you know, putting a new amp into it, doing the artwork, you know, new control panel, cleaning this control deck that's there. You know, this thing came with like 2 control boards. I knew that I wanted it to be singular. I knew that I wanted the CVS2 artwork. I knew that, you know, I wanted the white and blue one. I knew that there was going to be some blue hints into the CVS2 artwork that would tie into it. From there, I knew that I wanted to do yellow and orange buttons because it would tie in. I was extremely meticulous in putting this thing together, and it just came out to work really well for me. So let's talk about what I've got into this thing. All right, so I just turned the system on. And I have this set with a gaming PC, and it's pretty much set so that when it turns on, it goes directly into a front end, which is really good. Puts us in a position where I can just, let me turn this down a little bit. And we've got Street Fighter 6 loaded up. It's pretty good. Now, I was so meticulous when I bought the Chewlix. I had the monitor before the Chewlix. I'll card in the monitor right now, so you guys can kind of jump down a rabbit hole of when I've made the videos about the Chewlix and when I made the video for the monitor, and you can just see the time frame. I bought the monitor literally for the Chewlix. Like, the deal was already done. I knew it was coming, and you know, I planned this out. I was very excited for this. You know, and the monitor choice I used for this was great because it has a remote and everything was just well thought out. As I said, the Chewlix is going to be the unit you cut on. So I literally have changed speakers. I've changed the amplifier. I've completely gutted everything that was in it. When it came down to the monitor, you know, I made the monitor fit on both of them. So I didn't buy a bracket. There's no official bracket that you can buy that makes aftermarket monitors work. You just kind of got to figure it out, but it's really easy. And if you jump into any of the Facebook community groups for the Vewlix Chewlix community, you will find some great help, myself being included. That being said, you know, this has been a great platform for me. Really good. The monitor on this is 4K at 144 Hertz. It has something called high dynamic range intelligence. It is great. I've got this thing set up with a front end called launch box / big box. And it just makes it where, you know, I turn it on and like I said, my games are there. So I've got Street Fighter there. So it's like, I don't really have to do much. You know, I don't have to configure around and mess around with any keyboard and mice. I've got this thing set where it's just where I need it to be. So turning the game on gets us loaded right into where we need to be. I got a cloud out of date error here. So let me get this addressed. Yeah, so this is compiling shaders. My first time running it on this PC, Street Fighter 6, that is. But yeah, you know, so while I'm not going to go in depth in, you know, showing the inner workings of the systems, I've made specific content that is on the channel about these. And while that's doing that, we'll come back and talk about like the monitors as we're doing some comparisons, right? So let's talk about like Vewlix versus Chewlix. All right, so both two great opportunities. I love these things. These are just absolutely phenomenal. They look great. You know, you clean them up, you take some pride into getting them put together. It's just two great systems that, you know, I just come to love. So when we talk about like the differences now, keeping in mind, the orange diamond could be measured a little bit different than other cabinets. I only have these two machines. I don't have the desire to own 50 of these. There's just no need for me. I don't operate a venue or anything like that. It's just all like, you know, personal, you know. And then the Chewlix, the measurements that I have on mine, you know, they could vary. Again, this is a knockoff, so I'm pretty sure that is probably not a perfect one-to-one with each one. You know, but some of the things that I've noticed are going to be the height. To begin with the Chewlix and the Vewlix, they're both going to have from ground up to the control deck. The control deck on my Chewlix, I'll just say my Chewlix is lower than my Vewlix. And when I go to do some measurements, just something real quick, do it on camera. Ground up, I'm about 26 inches for the Vewlix, for the Chewlix, excuse me. When it comes down to my Vewlix, I am about 27.5 inch. And even just standing on top of them, you can't really see from the angle you are. I can tell the Vewlix just from the control board, it just sits up a little bit higher. So I was asked a question on stream the other night, you know, what's my favorite arcade stick to use? The Vewlix is literally my favorite. On top of that, what separates these two is going to be integrity of, you know, build, right? You got the real deal versus the fake. It's not a bad thing to have a Chewlix. Obviously I have one and I plan on getting another one. I'd love to get, like, they have a double model that's like a back-to-back. That would be incredible for me to have someday. But, you know, having the Vewlix is, you know, I think you're going to take more pride into your ownership of this, especially depending on the kind you got. Like for me, I had to have the orange one. And when I made videos about the actual Chewlix, I literally said, I want the orange Vewlix. This was the Vewlix I wanted to have. So for me to have it in my possession means a lot to me. But when you actually go to the construction of these units. I'm gonna hold this up. I have both of these pushed back to the wall. You know, you can see the back of the Chewlix. It does not touch the wall though. So at the bottom is pushed to the back, but I've got an opening of like 2 inches from the wall. Whereas to the Vewlix, when you go to it, you can see it's fully on the wall. Like this is touching the artwork there. You know, so there's some differences in measurements when it comes down to, you know, how they set. They look similar in a lot of ways, and I mean you'd be hard pressed to find differences coming from the two. But those are just going to be two immediate things that I've found to be different. Now, quality of build and like how the wiring and such is when it comes down to like the amplification and everything, it's a wash. The way that this Vewlix is wired up for like the monitor that was in it and everything, man, it was done really well. The Chewlix was just, it was like, I would almost tell you, if you get a Chewlix, get prepared to gut it, right? Gut the thing, start off fresh. As I said, it's the machine you get with the intentions of cutting on. And by cutting on, we're not just talking about a new monitor. We're talking about start from scratch. So what I did inside of mine was I ran a surge protector inside of it. And, you know, we cut a hole out and I ran the cord to plug into the wall outside the hole. I didn't want to deal with any of the wiring that they had. Whereas the Vewlix was all set. I haven't changed anything with the Vewlix. The Vewlix has everything inside of it that's needed outside of me putting the Xbox specific control board into it and the monitor and changing the artwork. And that was it, literally. There's nothing else I wanted to change in the Vewlix. I wanted to keep it as original as possible. And so, yeah, there are some differences. So I'm going to let this finish compiling shaders. You know, the Capcom gives you the notice that this could take 10 to 20 minutes. Let this do its thing. It's the first time running on this PC. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about some monitor stuff using the iPhone 14 Pro. All right, guys, so we are taking a look at both of these monitors. And let me just tell you, on the left with the Vewlix, we've got the Phillips Momentum monitor. It's 4K at up to 144 Hertz. And on the right, we've got the BenQ Mobiuz monitor. I carded it in earlier. I'll put models in the description to try to help you out. It's 4K, also at 144 Hertz. Now, obviously, this is Xbox on the left. This is PC on the right. This is not a console or PC restricted type of deal. What I'm here to tell you is that this Phillips Momentum monitor just has the ability to kick colors the hell up. Now, I've got HDR intelligence set on the monitor to the right. Obviously, the game doesn't run in high dynamic range, but kind of is what it is. You know, the Phillips Momentum is brighter and it has just more vivid potential, right? This camera doesn't do a great job of articulating that, so I'm going to try to use my iPhone and render it into this video, so hopefully it'll show you something a little bit better. All right, so now we are using the iPhone 14 Pro to film these. We just got done with the prior transition. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the brightness is decent on both, but like I said, this monitor, the extra punch and color is something that I welcome. You know, like I said, when I do a lot of TV content, you know, we look at like QD OLEDs versus non-QD OLEDs. It's the color volume, the potential of saturation. It's not about this looking more natural. Like in person, this looks more dull than this does. This has great punch and volume to it. And it's just the highlights, the details. The brightness is just hitting where it needs to be. I feel like the cell phone does a better job of articulating that because it can film in HDR. This camera cannot, so hopefully that explains something. Let me get the stage loaded up. All right, this is the Philips Momentum monitor using an iPhone. It just has a lot more volume to the colors in this area and such. Here's the BenQ Mobiuz, which does have a emulated HDR. And the colors just don't hit the same. This is the Philips Momentum. BenQ Mobiuz. Alright guys, so I legit had some fun producing this content, and my intentions were to bring you over to the third setup to kind of tie this in how I stream on here. I actually use a laptop and a gaming PC here. I use the PC if I'm playing games, but the laptop has the capture card and everything hooked up. I'm not sure if I really needed to go into all that, but I mean, if there's enough interest, you can leave it in the comment section and I'll revisit it and I'll just make this a video. I'm getting ready to do some cleaning and some cable management and changing a little bit of things around in this setup. But this video pretty much was made to kind of talk about and answer some questions around, you know, the Vewlix versus the Chewlix. And so I've got some more content that's going to be coming up. I've had some subscribers ask me about like front ends and things like that. So I'll have some more content coming next week or later in the week that'll speak to that. But if you guys got any questions about any of these two products that we talked about, in large part, the description, you know, I will put the monitors there. Like I said, there's no direct link where you could just go and say, hey, I want to buy this. Let me order it now. You kind of got to dive in, start with getting on the Facebook groups. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give you. But it's just all about, you know, having what you want and being comfortable with it. So thank you for allowing me the time and space to entertain you here. Hopefully you liked the video. If you did, thumb it up, leave some comments. Let's have some engagement. I'm going to catch you guys on the next video. Peace. God bless. As I always say, man, max love.